In the speech from President Biden, I will be reading what was the most important things that I read. In the words of Scripture, they remind us to hate evil, love good, and establish justice in the gate. Time stopped when many others were seeking justice, were beaten, and were bloody while crossing the bridge at Selma, named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. Democrats, Republicans, and Independents worked to pass a historic Civil Rights Act and the voting rights legislation. And each successive generation continued that ongoing work. But then the violent mob of January 6, 2021, empowered and encouraged by a defeated former president, sought to win through violence what he had lost at the ballot box, to impose the will of the mob, to overturn a free and fair election, and for the first time in American history, to stop the peaceful transfer of power. They failed. It's about the people, it's about America, for the right to vote and to have that vote counted as democracy's threshold liberty. Without it, nothing is possible, but with it, anything is possible. Black Americans were denied full citizenship and voting rights until 1965. Women were denied the right to vote just 100 years ago. The United States Supreme Court in recent years has weakened the Voting Rights Act. Dropping your ballots off to secure drop boxes is safe, it's convenient, and you get more people to vote. So limiting the number of drop boxes and the hours you can use them. Taking away the options has a predictable effect. Longer lines at the polls, lines that can last for hours. Last year alone, 19 states have not proposed but enacted 34 laws attacking voting rights. There were nearly 400 additional bills Republican members of state legislatures tried to pass, and now Republican legislators in several states have already announced plans to escalate the onslaught this year. The Freedom to Vote Act takes on election subversion to protect the election officials who are doing their job for intimidation and interference. Restoring the Voting Rights Act would mean the Justice Department can stop discriminatory laws before they go into effect. You know, when we got voting rights extended in the 1980s, as I said, even Thurman supported it. Think about that. The man who led one of the longest filibusters in the history of the United States Senate in 1957 against the Civil Rights Act. The man who led and sided with the old Southern Bulls in the United States Senate to perpetuate segregation in this nation. Even Strom Thurmond came to support voting rights. Not a single Republican has displayed the courage to stand up to defeat a president to protect America's right to vote. Not one. State legislatures can pass anti-voting laws with simple majorities. If they can do that, then the U.S. Senate should be able to protect voting rights by a simple majority. Today I'm making it clear. To protect Dr. Markey, I support changing the Senate rules whichever way they need to be changed to prevent a minority of senators from blocking action on voting rights. After nearly 250 years since our founding, the single idea still echoes, but it's all up to us to make sure it never fades, especially the students here. Your generation that just started voting, as there are those who are trying to take away that vote, you just started to be able to exercise. And remember, as I said, there is one. This is one of the defining moments in American history. Each of those who vote will be remembered by class after class in the 50s and 60s, the 2050s and 60s. Each one of the members of the Senate is going to be judged by history on where they stood before the vote and where they stood after the vote.